What if I told you that from now on, politicians and political campaigns, instead of directing their messages and their advertisements to the general public, instead they're going to start paying attention to you. They're going to start crafting messages and advertisements that are directed directly to you, directed towards your concerns, your interests, your values, the things that you care about most. Maybe it's global warming or terrorism or gay marriage or taxes or immigration or whatever it is. Well, you might think that that's a good thing. A lot of people complain that today politicians don't listen to them, that they don't have any impact on the system. The politicians and the political system ignores what the average person thinks, but now somebody's paying attention to you. They're listening, and they're listening to what concerns you, and they're sending you a message that directly resonates with your interests and your values. Well, in a sense, I think we're already in this world, and more our world is beginning to resemble this. And here's what Richard Sinianton, a political scientist who studies political campaigns, has said. He says, campaigns used to be about parties and candidates. Increasingly, campaigns will become about you, the customer. Well, how can this be? How is this happening? Well, the answer is what is known as micro-targeting. Micro-targeting is a method that business firms have been using for a while now to try to sell products to consumers. And recently, political campaigns have started using this micro-targeting technique to try to sell politicians to voters. So how does micro-targeting work? Well, it involves two steps, basically. The first step is gathering information about consumers. Right? So the first step is you have demographic data you have on consumers. And that could be their age, and this is all publicly available. Your age, your income, your marital status, where you live, and so forth. And then that demographic, publicly available demographic information, is wedded to consumer lifestyle information. The television shows you watch, the beer you drink, the soda you drink, the magazines you subscribe to, the newspapers you read, and so forth. And they take this information and they use that information to develop advertisements that are specifically directed to you based upon your lifestyle and your demographic categories. Messages that they think are going to really resonate with you and get you to buy the particular consumer product that they want you to buy. Well, I'll go back a little. Well, what's happened is political campaigns have started doing this too. But in addition to that demographic data, and that consumer lifestyle data, they're taking information that they already have about you based on your voting behavior. How likely you are to vote, which party you're registered to vote for, which parties you tend to vote for, regardless of who you're registered to vote for. They take that voter information data and they combine it with the lifestyle information and the demographic data. Now, where are they getting this information? Well, the voter data is already publicly available. The demographic data is publicly available as well. The micro-targeting data with respect to lifestyle information, they're getting it from firms like Axiom, Experian, and Claritas, and a whole bunch of others now. And these firms basically analyze all the activity that you engage in, especially on the internet. The websites you visit, the ads that you click on, the shows that you record on the DVR, the television that you listen to or that you watch on streaming television, the radio that you listen to on streaming radio, all of that is being recorded and analyzed. Now, Axiom, which is the biggest of these firms, it's located in Little Rock, Arkansas, has an array of 23,000 servers that run day and night, churning through all this data. 50 million data transactions a day, 500 million individuals around the world they're monitoring, and you can be assured that you are among them, analyzing all this data. And then they take all this data and they create what they call lifestyle clusters, which are based on 1,500 data points that they have about you, whether that's your age, your income, the television shows you watch, all that stuff. And they use it to create a model of your consumer behavior. And now the political campaigns are latching onto that data, and they figured out that data can also predict how you're going to vote and whether you're going to, and how likely you are to vote. So, let me give you some examples here. So, this is an analysis of the connection between the soft drinks that you drink and how likely you are to vote and which political party you're likely to vote for. So you can see people who drink Diet Dr. Pepper are extremely likely to vote Republican and very likely to vote, right? And people who drink 7-Up are a lock for the Democrats, but maybe not too likely to vote. You might have a better chance up there with, well, if you drink caffeine-free Diet Pepsi, well, you're probably gonna vote, but nobody knows who you're gonna vote for, right? So, and let me give you another example. This is the automobiles you drive. Now, if you drive a Jaguar, the data suggests you're very likely to vote, extremely, almost 100% locked to vote, and you're almost certain to vote Republican. If you drive some sort of hybrid vehicle, well, as you might imagine, you're almost certainly going to be a Democrat, and you're also likely to vote. However, if you drive a Mitsubishi, you're probably not going to vote, and if they can't predict who you're going to vote for anyway, right? Well, these are just two little bits of information. They have 1,500 little bits of information on everybody on this audience, 500 million people around the world, and they crunch all this data using sophisticated mathematical algorithms to try to predict if you're going to vote and who you're going to vote for, and also what type of political messages are likely to resonate with you. Is it global warming's your big issue? Is it terrorism or whatever, right? Okay, so is this a good thing? Is this a good thing that this is happening? Well, you might think that it's a good thing, in part because, well, now somebody's paying attention to you, right? And it also might get voters who otherwise are not particularly energized or somewhat apathetic, not involved in the political process. If messages are coming to them that directly resonate with them, address their issues, their concerns, their values, they might be become more politically involved. And that's a problem in the United States because we have really low voter turnout in the United States, among the worst of all the developed democracies. So you might think it's a good thing, and maybe in some ways it is. But today I want to argue that it's mainly a bad thing. And the reason I think it's a bad thing is I think that micro-targeting undermines what political scientists call the public sphere. And in any democracy, the quality of that democracy in part depends on the quality of public opinion. What people think about matters of public policy, and how informed they are about politics. Well, this all arises from a kind of big debate, a big discussion that we all have in any free and democratic society about matters of public policy. So we want our public opinion to be rational, we want it to be informed, and we want it to be inclusive. We want everybody to be involved in this debate. But I think micro-targeting is undermining, because it's been going on now for over a decade, undermining the quality of the public sphere. Well, how is it doing this? Well, I think it's doing so in three basic ways. The first is it's channeling voters into what I call informational silos. Secondly, it facilitates the evasion of public scrutiny. And finally, it facilitates what communications scholar Philip Howard has called political redlining. So, informational silos. Well, in a healthy public sphere, we want everybody's viewpoints to be represented. We want not just the viewpoints of the rich, but also the viewpoints of the poor and the viewpoints of the middle class. We want people of different political perspectives, their viewpoints to be represented. We want people from all different walks of life and different regions of the country. We want everybody's viewpoints represented. And we want to hear other people's viewpoints, and we want to have those viewpoints scrutinized. But in a micro-target environment, everybody just receives their own little personal message. They don't know what other people are hearing. Therefore, they're not able to, in a sense, be part of this larger conversation. In the old days, when advertisement was mainly through mass media, like broadcast television, or radio, or newspapers, or magazines, the type of messages that political campaigns and politicians had to craft necessarily addressed a broad audience. You couldn't craft a micro-targeted message with a television ad that was going out over the airwaves. It was going to reach all different sorts of people from different walks of life, with different political views in different parts of the country. Now, increasingly that's coming to an end. More and more, especially people get their television through streaming television. And streaming television can be micro-targeted. When you're watching streaming television as opposed to broadcast television or broadcast radio, the micro-targeters know what you're watching, they know everything about you, and they can craft an advertisement that they think is going to resonate particularly with you. Well, so that's a problem. I think it's undercutting the quality of the discussion, the big collective discussion we have called the public sphere. A second problem with it is I think micro-targeting facilitates the evasion of public scrutiny, either by members of the public or perhaps even more importantly, by the press. So if you have broadcast advertisements or mass media advertisements or political messages, everybody can see those, including the press, and they can vet that information for false or misleading or inflammatory information. But if all of the information that voters are getting are through these narrow little informational silos that are privatized effectively, it's no longer in the public sphere. Nobody knows what messages people are getting. Nobody knows what the content of those messages is. Increasingly, that's the case. There's all this political, in a sense, discussion that's taking place underneath the radar. And I think, perhaps most problematically, this incentivizes campaigns to create false or misleading or inflammatory information. Because if you can say something that's blatantly false, but that might help your candidate get elected, or inflammatory that's really going to energize people to vote, and nobody, especially nobody in the press, is going to hear about it, well, you've got a strong incentive to do that. And I think one of the big problems with this in particular is that it probably increases political polarization. Because if the type of message in particular that you want to send to get somebody to vote is one that's going to get them really angry, political scientists and people who work on campaigns call these anger points. You want to press people's anger points. How do you do that? Send them false and inflammatory information. It'll get them really angry, and then they'll vote. But the problem with that is, well, you're in addition to sending false information, you're making people hate each other more. Right? And that's a big, big problem we have in the United States. It's what political scientists call affective polarization. That means people hate other people from other political parties and different viewpoints more than they used to. I think micro-targeted advertisement is one of the big things that's contributing to this. Okay, and then finally, here's an example of a micro-targeted message. This is one of the first ones that was attempted. This is from 2004, the presidential contest between George W. Bush and John Kerry, the Democratic candidate, and the Republican National Committee sent out this micro-targeted mail flyer. So they have micro-targeted information on all these households that they think are going to be receptive to this message, which is that if Kerry is elected, the Bible is going to be banned and gay marriage will be legalized, right? Well, at least the part, eventually the gay marriage part did become true, but the Bible, the banning the Bible, of course, is both false and inflammatory. Kerry neither had the intention nor the ability to ban the Bible, but people receiving this message, according to the micro-targeted analysis that the Republican National Committee had, believed they would be receptive to this message. So what's the result of this? You have less informed voters and angrier voters. I don't think that that's a good thing. Okay, finally, political redlining. Political redlining is another problem, I think, that stems from micro-targeting. Micro-targeting allows political campaigns and politicians to target voters, the only voters that they think are likely to vote for them or that can be persuaded to vote for them. If there's a voter out there that they think has no chance of voting or no chance of voting for the candidate that they want them to vote for, then they don't have to waste any resources contacting them. In the old days of broadcast media, you take out an ad in a newspaper or you put one on the airwaves, lots of people, whether they're voters or not, whether they agree with your positions or not, are going to hear that message. Now they can effectively be redlined out of the conversation. And I think this is going to suppress the amount of public dialogue we have. We have, like I said, we have low voter turnout in the United States. If fewer people are being sort of energized to participate in the sort of public discussion, to go out and vote because of micro-targeting, I think that's damaging to our democracy. So, there's a quote from an anonymous campaign worker I came across. The data let you target. Who would want to target non-voters, for example? Big waste of time. Okay, what can be done about this? Well, in a sense, I'm going to have to say, I think not much. The horse is already out of the stable, but I think there's two things that might maybe make the problem a little bit not so bad. One would be have some sort of requirement, either a federal or a state level requirement, that campaigns make all of their ads available to the press and the broader public. This could be through some sort of publicly available website where any member of the press or any member of the public could log on and say, I'm interested in what this candidate or what this political party is saying to everybody. So you can see all the advertisements and photocopies of all the direct mail flyers and so forth. So you can be informed. And also the press can monitor this stuff as well. And the second thing is we can all advocate for better protection of our own personal data. A lot of people are disturbed that these giant firms are crunching all this data about you and predicting how you're going to, not just what products you're going to buy, but how you're going to vote. Well, if we had better protection of our personal data, it would make micro-targeting more difficult. So that's all I got. Thank you.